Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca, and today I will be talking about a program called Sonic Pi, which is a really great free program that uses Ruby to code music. And it was created by Sam Aaron, who is a digital musician and a Cambridge Computer Lab researcher. His whole gospel is that he wants to spread code to everyone around the world. The kind of tagline of Sonic Pi is the live coding synth for everyone. And it's really accessible. He created a whole curriculum for students to learn how to use it, to kind of teach appreciation of music and coding. As a side note, it can also be used to control Minecraft, but we won't be talking about that today. Beyond being this accessible educational tool, it also is really powerful, and Sam and a bunch of other musicians use it actually to DJ in bars and can create really cool stuff with it that's a lot more complicated than what I'll be showing you that I created. And just to get a basic look at what you can do with Sonic Pi, the two main features are play and sleep. Play plays a note, and it can take a number, which correlates to the number of the key on a piano. So 50 is actually the note D. It can also take, if you're a traditionally trained musician, you can give it F3, which is the note F, and 3 reflects the octave. And I will show you. This is the program Sonic Pi, and if you can hear, so it's looping through a D minor chord, and it's using just a basic Ruby loop to infinitely loop that until I press stop. Something that's interesting to note is that if you don't have that sleep there, it'll play the notes simultaneously. So you can hear it like this. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's no longer playing 3 individual notes. And if we put it back in, back to your chord. Obviously, if all you could do is play those kind of beepy noises, it wouldn't be that exciting. So Sonic Pi comes with a ton of built-in functionality. So let's get to that. So it has looping, like you just saw, but what's even more exciting is it has this thing called live loop, which lets you edit a loop while it's playing. So that can obviously be very powerful if you're like DJing and you want to change something on the spot. So for an example, this is just a sample that is built into Sonic Pi. It's I don't know if you can hear that. Can you guys hear it a little bit? So while it's looping, I'm not pressing stop or anything. I can change the sleep, press run again, and now it's much slower. And I can change it back. And you don't have to stop it because it's a live loop. It automatically just takes that edit into it. The actual code behind it that's being abstracted by this really simple interface is super complicated. So I'm not going to really get so into it, but just to glance at it, all the code behind Sonic Pi is on GitHub and publicly available. So this is where he's defining that live loop. And essentially, it's taking in everything that you're giving it and putting it into threads. So here's where it's actually using it in thread. And all that is basically to make sure that you're syncing all the sounds together in the proper time, and that you can add multiple loops and have them blend. So you can see here you have two live loops. I don't know if you can hear that, but those loops are actually happening synchronously, which is pretty cool. Something else that is built in to Sonic Pi are these things called synths, which are short for synthesizers, and those are just different effects you can put on the notes. Here's a bunch of examples of synthesizers. I don't know if you can hear that at all, but it's playing E, the note E, on repeat, but each note has a different synthesizer on it because it's ticking through these different synthesizers of TB303, Blade, Prophet, Saw, Beep, Try. It's dot ticking through that kind of array, if you think of it as that, and putting that on the note E2. So those are the different synths that you can have there. And then each synth sample note, they can all take things called opts, which let you customize even more. One example of an opt is release, which tells you how long to hold the note before you sleep. Amp is the amplitude, BPM, beats per measure, make it faster, slower. These all have defaults, and you can change them. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go into too much detail on that, but I'm happy to talk about it later if you're interested. Some other miscellaneous things that are built into Sonic Pi, and this is more, I guess, abstracting the coding behind it. So all these different rand features will give you a random number, and the various ones, it's either an integer or a float, or excluding the max and min, or including the max and min. But essentially, you can use it to do something like this. Oops. Like this. So it's playing random notes using the sample bell. And what's changing the sound of that note is this rate that's being given a random number between 0.125 and 1.5. It's also being given random times to sleep between those notes. And every time it hits that perk bell sample, it's going to give it a different number. Another thing that's cool is this dot times thing, which instead of infinitely looping, you can loop through a block a finite number of times. So you can say like 5 dot times do a block of code and then end, and that will run that block of code 5 times. Dot tick will move through an array, each element of the array one at a time. So we saw that with the bells. It was going through that array. Dot choose will choose one element from an array. Dot ring does something really cool to arrays. So as we all know, if you have an array of 3 elements and you ask it for the 5th index, it'll return null because that index doesn't exist in the array. Using dot ring, Sam, the creator of Sonic Pi, is abstracting this functionality that alters the array to continuously wrap around the elements. So you'll always get a note returned to you, even if the array doesn't have that many elements in it. And that also we saw in this bell, sorry, not the bell thing, the synth example, where you see it's converting this array into a ring so that the live loop is happening infinitely if we never press stop, but it's always finding an element in that array. Queue and sync are also really complex things that I'm not going to go too deep into, but essentially they help you synchronize 2 different loops. So if while you're DJing, something goes wrong and you need to make an edit in one loop to make sure that it syncs back up to everything else that's happening right now, you can use these queue and sync functionalities. And just to show you a couple more examples, if we have time for them. So here, the loop amen sample is just like a classic drum sample. It's using the BPM of 60, and here it's beat stretching. So if you change this, you'll hear maybe. So it's totally off rhythm because it's no longer stretching the beats to be the same as what's sleeping in between them. So if we go back to 2, it'll go back to the correct rhythm. Cutoff filters through the different frequencies to give you a different sound, which I won't go into right now. Here's, so we saw this one. Here's another example. And here's an example of that dot times thing I mentioned. So it's going through the E minor pentatonic scale 16 times. Each time it's going to choose a random number from that scale. And scale and chord will both automatically give you that ring array so you can loop through automatically. I've shown you a couple of snippets here and there. There's obviously a lot more that you can do with it. Just to give you a little taste of how cool Sonic Pi can be. This is daftpunk recreated with Sonic Pi, and you can see the same features that we saw in the little snippet. So there's amp, amplitude, there are different samples, synthesizers, it's sleeping, it's doing all these loops, there's the dot times. But all together, it can create these really complex things. And I hope I've shown you a taste of what you can do with Sonic Pi, and we don't have time to listen to the full thing right now, but I will send out all these links, and I hope that you will get a chance to take a look at it. There's also, Sam Aaron, the creator, gave a really cool talk at this Strange Loop conference where he goes into more detail about how he actually built Sonic Pi and abstracted all these really intense features. Synchronizing music is really complicated and not a small task. He has like a whole paper that he wrote about all of it. So you can watch his talk at this YouTube link. You can listen to that Daft Punk song, look at the source code on GitHub, read this ebook, which is written for a wider audience, and it's a little bit more accessible. And I hope you got a little bit of a taste of what you can do with Sonic Pi. Thanks.